I'm Alice too, and I'm half Vietnamese and half Chinese. My parents come from Vietnam mostly.
My name is Emilio Manuel Camus. I am Filipino American. I moved to the US, actually first in Somerset, New Jersey when I was 8.5 years old in March 2001. Currently I serve as the president of the Asian American Student Association and the Filipino American Student Association at University of Utah. I also hold a lot of community office positions within the Asian American community. So, yeah.
Someone who has Asian background, like their family comes from Asia, but they have recently moved to the United States, or actually anywhere in America, and or they've been
someone who was born in America that happens to be Asian.
In my definition, Asian American is any person of Asian descent, whether it be full, half, or living in the United States, regardless of legality or regardless of like papers. So.
1865.
They came before Christopher Columbus, so it was way before 1400s too.
There's probably about like 50 types of Asians. Probably about 50.
Like 20. Was it close?
I know there was an Asian recently in Utah that got elected for some kind of government type role. I don't know his name though. Yeah, Michael Witt. We've got Aaron Yu. I think he's an actor. I think that's all I can name right now.
There's Lucy Liu from Charlie Angels. Glenn from Walking Dead. He was pretty cool.
What is his name? Matt something. He was the first Asian American NBA basketball player. He actually came from Utah. He went to the University of Utah. Matt Osaka, I think that's his name. Actors, can't really name any except the Asian international ones. But for Congress people, Mazie Hirono, she's the first Asian in the representing Hawaii. There's also Grace Meng. She's the first Asian American woman to represent New York. Mark Tanaka, he's the first openly gay congressman. Then there's Tammy Duckworth. She's the first Thai American and the first war veteran to serve in Congress. And there's Judy Chu. She's actually the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. And Daniel Akaka. So, yeah.
Asian American has citizenship in America, while an Asian does not.
Asian is someone who was born in Asia. Like, Asian American could be used as a subgroup though.
I don't have a say in it, but for people that I recognize as Asian American, I believe it's anyone that comes from the continent of Asia. I know under the U.S. how they divide the demographics is that Middle Eastern Asian Americans don't count as Asian; they count as white. And for me, I believe Persians, Arab Americans should be considered Asian American just because they come from the Asian continent.
really good at math. Smart, they're really good at math. Chinky eyes. Count like insults as well. And then there's like chink and good and fob.
Overachiever. That one math nerd. That one smart kid.
Bad drivers, that we're good at math. We're always going to science or math. We're going to be doctors. We're going to be engineers, nurses, anything that that involves like the STEM fields. We're gonna, let's see what else. We own a lot of businesses. Always eat rice. Everyone knows how to use chopsticks. We know another language besides English. We watch anime, watch manga. Other stereotypes. We're quiet, we're submissive. Especially for Asian American women. They're an object to be fetishized. And I guess, so Asian American women and like gay Asian American men are often subject to those stereotypes of submissive. They're quiet. Yeah.
I've been called a chink a lot, and I've always felt smart because I'm Asian, so if I do something smart or seem smart, people will say it's because I'm Asian.
We perpetuate these stereotypes ourselves. It's not just outside groups. It's the in-group practice of stereotypes that also affect us. Because I think like when you embrace it, it denounces and degrades the type of racism being practiced by other people. When you own it, it's less harmful. Like when people call themselves, like when Filipinos call themselves flip, they don't know the background of that term. Flip is an acronym that stands for fucking little island people that US soldiers first started calling the Philippines when they first colonized them. Like chink is a racist term, gook, a racist term, jap, racist term, and so on.
You feel as if those terms are a racist. Have you experienced any of that racism towards yourself?
Daily.
There's some expectations of like being Asian, like people expect you to be smart. It's like, oh, you have like this huge expectation to be like really smart, really good at like certain subjects, and like people expect you to be like doctors or something, like take like lots of schooling and all other things.
So the model minority is a term, and it's a myth. It refers to Asian Americans as the most successful, highly educated minority group that other minority groups should follow. And what it does is it creates, it pits the minority groups against each other. So it pits Asians against like blacks, Latinos. It was a term created somewhere around the civil rights movement because, you know, like there was the African Americans, Latino Americans, and Native Americans trying to struggle for their rights. And then they used Asian Americans to be, oh, this is an example of what you should be doing instead of protesting. Asian Americans are the model. They're highly successful. They follow the rules. They're quiet. They're smart. They're educated, and above all, like they have high regard for family values.
It's kind of discriminatory against the other races. It's like, I mean, we're just races, like people. There's like people are different. So like not all Asians are smart. And there are plenty of like other races who have smart people and other things. Like we shouldn't be a model. We should just all be models for each other.
That's stupid.
How so?
So you're basing on like maybe probably a majority of that minority, but there is still other people in the minorities that
I always thought that the model minority stereotype, or the model minority myth, was something I should be proud of. You know, it turned into a lot of Asian pride, you know, that a lot of high school students had. When I went to college, high school, there was a handful of Asian American students, maybe 20 when I started, or less, around 15 to 20 when I started. And by the time I had graduated, the population had grew because more and more Asian Americans were going to that school, and there were a number of refugee students that were Cham or Hmong that were coming to the school. So our population grew, but they still thought that all the Asian Americans were successful. They thought we were bringing in nice test scores. I mean, I even heard what my teachers in high school say. It's like, oh yeah, so we were breaking down the brackets and you Asians were scoring the highest. We're so glad to have you, but I don't know what we're gonna do next year because we don't have as much Asians. So that to me was kind of, oh, so you only want us for the high test scores. And I'm pretty sure that, because I had a few people that I knew that were refugees that were studying in that school that didn't do well in all those like CRT tests.
The smart, it's not that offensive. I mean, like, it's almost like a compliment. It's still kind of offensive, but like being called a chick and other things are really offensive.
There's bullying, you know, and people say it affects everyone, but according to research, Asian American youth are the people that are most likely to experience bullying. People sort of tend to desensitize it by saying, oh no, it's just teasing, it's normal, it happens. No, it's bullying.
I'm just sitting here working on my homework, all of a sudden someone's just like, I'm overachieving, because they see it in my class. But it's really nothing. It's just about this.
I mean, there's this concept that Asian Americans are perpetual foreigners. You know, they're not really from here. I don't know. A lot of people, including myself, a lot of Asian Americans, including myself, have always been asked, you know, where are you from? You know, and you're saying, oh, I'm from Utah. I'm from Salt Lake. And they're like, oh, where are you really from? It's like, oh, well, I guess I moved here from New Jersey. And then they're like, no, where are you really from? And then you get that notion that, oh, they mean where, like, what is my ethnicity? What is my country of origin? And for me, I mean, it's the truth that I come from the Philippines, but for a lot of my friends, a lot of my colleagues that are, you know, 6th, 7th generation Asian American, it kind of gets, you know, offensive where they get the feeling that they don't belong here. They can't be from America.
Even if you're not Chinese and you seem Asian, that's what Americans tend to, or a lot of people tend to just call you Chinese even though you're not really Chinese. There's like a lot. I think that's what. Yeah, I speak Vietnamese. They're just curious, and so I was just like, oh, okay, I'll show you some things. It's like, no big deal. They just want to know a little bit more about your culture.
I speak Tagalog, and it's the language of like northern Philippines, northwest Philippines. It gets awkward because I'm also with other friends that are Asian, different ethnicities of Asian American, and they ask each one of us to speak, and usually I'm the only one that can speak another language. All the other ones were born here, they speak English, they don't know how to say your name in, you know, Vietnamese or Thai. People always ask me, it's like, oh, what's my name in Filipino? Like, I don't, it's the same. Why are you at, like, it doesn't translate, like Robert doesn't translate unless you take like the direct, like if you go all the way back and take the meaning of Robert and it's like, oh, royal, regal, then you can translate it. But you know, I'm not your personal Filipino dictionary. You know, I'm not there to speak when you tell me to speak.
So I get like Asian foods, like the Asian animals like panda. Right, so it's just called Asian.
Asian.
Asian?
Every other Asian.
Would always refer to me as Asian. And it's only now that I look back that I shouldn't have embraced that. I should have told them to call me by my name, because when people call me, oh, Asian, you know, it kind of, I don't know, it dehumanizes me. I help perpetuate that. And it wasn't like I was a person anymore. It wasn't like I was my own identity. I was seen for my race, not my individuality.
It's okay. Like if that's what they want to do, it's no big deal. But like I think you should be proud a little bit that you're Asian. Like it doesn't hurt to look like what you naturally are.
Well, maybe they want to wear contacts because they want their eyes to stand out because they don't like their eye color. That's like any other race or group that would want to do. Like every other race would do. So there's nothing wrong with Asians either. Unless they're trying to pretend to be someone.
Yes.
That's different.
I think that's really a term that I was placed upon, you know, Asian Americans that didn't speak any other language. It's a way to shame people. It's the way people used to shame themselves. It's like, oh, I don't speak any language. I'm so whitewashed. Oh, I'm not Buddhist anymore. I'm so whitewashed. I think it's just it's a colonial term. It's a concept that was introduced because of different intersectionalities of like identity. There are terms that kind of, you know, divide Asian Americans, because then it says it kind of creates like a clash between different groups of Asian Americans. I don't really refer to anyone as white. I feel like it's a useless term to use.
Yeah, a little bit, because then you don't know if you should act more Asian or if you should act more American or a mix, or it's just like sometimes you just don't know.
Well, I think it's kind of lost because you're surrounded by other cultures and they kind of integrate.
I definitely do, because, you know, there's this concept of intersectionalities of identity that people don't really know. They're not familiar with it. So I know, like, for example, you can be Asian, but Asian doesn't mean that you're gay. If you're a gay Asian, like, that doesn't really work. Where do you go? Are you in the Asian community? Are you in the gay community? I think there's a lot of confusion too, who people think are Asian. When people say, oh, let's go eat Asian food, you know, they usually refer to East Asian, like Chinese or Japanese, like sushi, fried rice or whatever. And I think it's just because there's so many different ethnicities under that Pan-Asian term, is that it's confusing who else to identify. I know a lot of times, you know, Filipinos are questioned whether they're Asian, whether they're really Asian or Pacific Islander. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Why do you have to be one? Why can't you be both? You know, why do you have to choose between one identity? Your identity is an intersection of like different things: race, gender, class, sexuality, ability. So yeah, I think that that's where a lot of confusion comes from, because people think you have to choose one.
Probably family or maybe language. I feel like I might be losing the Vietnamese language because I'm not that fluent in it, but I wanted something I want to pass on to my kids.
Discipline.
The values I would like to pass on to my kids: family first, education second, culture that's third. So I don't know. For me, always remember your roots. You have to remember your past in order to move ahead. So yeah.
I think they might be getting less. Like, I think the world is getting closer to less discrimination. I think there will still be some discrimination.
But it'll probably be more stressful.
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope it gets better. You know, I hope that my generation makes it better for them, so they don't have to experience any just sort of racism through, like, you know, advocacy and awareness and activist work. I just hope that there are less, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they experience the same. It might be worse, which I hope will happen, but you know, we have to prepare for any kind of situation. It's really tiring, though. It's really exhaustive. Reminding each and every person, hey, that's racist. Hey, you should be aware of this. Did you know all these stereotypes, how they affect you, how they're, you know, they're not helpful, no matter how much you embrace it. And it's important, of course, but the importance of it, I think, is overshadowed by the lack of interest by the general Asian American population. There are a handful of people, though, that have become aware and they're helping spread the word, but it's exhausting.